welcome you all here. And it seems we have a very large percentage of people are new to family constellation work. So let me give a little background. First for myself, I got into Eastern philosophy and Tai Chi and meditation, different things way back in high school. And so I've been into this a long time. And like I said, right now I'm in acupuncture school. So I just always keep learning and growing and adding new things to my toolbox. And I'm a former yogic monk. I lived in India for a couple of years and studied with my guru, and lived in a monastery and trained to be a monk, and then was posted in France and taught yoga and meditation there. And I had a great experience doing that, and I realized I wanted to move on to different things in my life, and so I quit doing that and came back to the States. And like I was said to one person, that I'm also a massage therapist. I specialize in craniosacral therapy. I'm also an astrologer, and I do both Western and Vedic astrology, the Indian system. I do tarot and palm reading at the Renaissance Festival, which didn't happen this year because of COVID, but probably, hopefully, fingers crossed, is going to happen again. It's usually the last week of August through October near Annapolis. It's a really fun medieval event. And I studied at the DC Hellinger Institute. I did a year-long training and then an additional year training with Heinz Stark, a teacher from Germany. And this work comes out of Germany. There was a person named Bert Hellinger who developed family constellation work, and he had been a minister working in Africa, and he saw how they worked with ancestral spirits. And he also saw how there was so much reverence for the family, and the bond that people had in the family was for their parents was so different from the West, where there's so often tension and anger and blame and different difficulties that arise between parents and children. And part of the reason for that, he came to realize, is that people are held by the community there in a way that they aren't as much here. So you don't have to like blame just the parents because you were raised by the village in a sense. And and also, and so many cultures around the world have a very keen awareness and reverence for the ancestors. They're really tapped into the ancestors as a resource. And just as animals, animal totems, angels, all kinds of spiritual resources, there's so many subtle resources that come from subtle planes. The ancestors is another one. And if you think of God, the creator, well, we were literally created by our parents, and they were created by their parents. And so, we can think of our ancestors as our creators. I mean, they're where our roots actually lie. And I studied with Roger Wolger, a past life regression kind of work. He calls it deep memory process. And I got a lot out of that. But I found that I've done family constellation work for probably 15 years now. And I found that the family constellation work actually has a deeper impact than the past life regression. It seems to be that we're more connected to our ancestral roots, and they have a bigger influence than past lives seem to have. And that's the reason that I do this work, is that it has huge impacts in people's life and really helps people shift in big issues that often are unconscious. And to me, that's what's interesting in the healing work and in growth work, figuring out things that help us in places where we're stuck, where we can't just figure it out with our head and our conscious mind and our ego. That's where deep things lie. Carl Jung said that our conscious mind is just the tip of the iceberg, that 90% of our being is below the surface of the conscious mind and of the ego, that we're so deeply tapped in to the collective conscious. And so the ancestral realm is one part of this. And in this work, we're trying to find places where we're entangled unconsciously, often with different family members or patterns that are caught in families. And this work is also, it has different names. One is just systemic work, and it's based on the principle of if you move one piece of a mobile, the whole organism moves. So we're very connected into our family, and when we shift, the whole family shifts. And let's see, there's some things. Alice, do you want to address? Somebody asked about the recording, so I'm not involved with it.
This has come up several times, and whenever I feel that anybody is not happy with the work being recorded, that we should shut it off. So I'm going to close the recording.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, because this is deeply personal work, and I'm still in the explanational phase, but when we get into the experiential phase of the workshop tonight, basically we're doing individual work in a group process. And so really deep personal stuff gets shared. And before we start that, we all take an oath to keep confidentiality about whatever personal material gets.
I guess because you're the host, you're going to have to, and you can stop the recording after your explanation, because
because some people might come late. So so and remind me if I forget, but we're going to stop the recording when we get into the experiential part.
Okay, great.
So and then also part of this work is to make the implicit become explicit. So this is field work. It's often, take the example, you can think of somebody who has deep internalized shame and self-hatred and destructive inner life, and outside there, I'm the greatest, I'm so fantastic, why don't you love me? Nobody's better than I am. Now, if there's that kind of weird kind of inner and outer discrepancy, that's of course going to show up. And often a person who's like that might be like that because they're trying to compensate for the inner and outer. But we're trying to bring out that which might be hidden. And when you speak truth into the field, it's very healing and clarifying. And sometimes disorders, like diseases are called disorders, when there's confusion in the field and there's disorder in a person's field, it can lead to literally eventually physical disorders. And one of the foundational books that Bert Hellinger, who started this work, wrote is called Orders of Love. And one of the principles in that book is that everybody in a family deserves respect and honor and to be given their place in the family. And a lot of times there's difficult situations arise when somebody's excluded and shunned and different things. And that's one of the ways sometimes trauma also passes down, that we might unconsciously be acting out a pattern that has happened in the family for several generations. And we're trying to bring that, we're trying to be loyal to that. And we're trying to acknowledge we sense that there's that injustice. We want to correct it, and we want to try to heal the kind of arc of the family. And as I was saying about like this work's called systemic work, it's also used in organizations and doesn't have to be about family issues. You know, it turns out that most of our core issues go back to our family. That's, you know, when we were so formational experiences in life. But this work is really about thinking of what's blocking me in my life, and how would my life be different if I could get unblocked from whatever is blocking me. So don't limit yourself when you're thinking about the family constellation work to that it has to be a family issue, that it's whatever issue is in your forefront and is giving you difficulty in your life. So it can really address any issue. But even that being said, even when you use this in a boardroom and in an organizational setting, often when you're working with the CEO of a company and stuff, it will end up going back to that person's family, depending how deep the work goes and how personally it gets. And it's said that, you know, in work and in other places in our life, often we kind of unconsciously recreate what happened in our family, or we're attracted to partners who are like different, let's say, parental figures or things like that, to kind of get put back in that situation to learn and heal and correct. And so we kind of, these patterns often cycle through in many different ways. And there's some people that don't remember their dreams, for example. And if you don't remember your dreams, you can just work with life and just think of life the way life is showing up as a dream, or also your daydreams and your fantasies and things like that. So, so in this work, it's called soul work because we're trying to drop out of our head and to drop deep into ourselves so that we can take things in a deep level, so that it will have a big impact and will shift in a profound way. And the mind functions very fast and jumps from idea to idea and can be fickle. And so before we do the experiential piece, I'm going to do a brief meditation to try to get us more into that slow, soulful place. And this work can be done one-on-one. I see clients, and there's different ways the one-on-one work can happen. Sometimes I'll stand in and represent different parts of whatever the problem that the person is facing. And family constellation work is a way of mapping your issue. And just that is a big healing step. You know, we're often confronting something in our head, and we're trying to think how to get out of this, you know, loop and circle that we're in. And so the when you can externalize, when your problem, you can see it outside of yourself, just that concretization, that imaging. Jung says that all psychological healing and stuff comes from working with an image. So we get an image of what the map looks like, of what this thing that's been bothering us. We can see it in a new way. We have a new perspective outside of ourselves. We get some distance, we get some objectivity to see it out there, and we can reflect on it in a different way. And so that's part of the healing process. So this work also has some roots in relation to psychodrama, where they act out different things that were traumatic. And in that work, they'll stand up, and then the person using their conscious mind and will and ego says, okay, you do this, you do that, this is what happened. And in family constellation work, as a facilitator, I'll talk to whoever's going to do a piece of work, and I'll help them figure out what representations to pick You know, you might have someone standing there. When it's in person in a workshop, you actually will choose people from the group. And today we'll just on Zoom be choosing people. But if we were in person, you would choose them and they would stand up, and like this person might represent you and this other person is representing this issue you're dealing with. And you would have those two representatives stand up. And then they tune in to what they're noticing, and we're tapping into their field. And the veil is way thinner than we think and acknowledge, particularly in our society. And there's we have access and the body is a great tool to tapping into the field. And you don't have to do any special training. Sometimes someone will drag their trucker husband to a workshop. He doesn't have any interest in this stuff at all. And he gets chosen to be a representative, and he'll stand up and he'll be representing somebody's father, let's say, for example. And then he'll start to say, you know, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Like I'm feeling these certain feelings, and I'm feeling like I want to move away from that person. And so our body becomes an antenna, and we're able to constellate the field. And welcome, Colleen. We're asking people to mute during this part. We're getting some echoes. Yeah. And so in this work, then if you're a representative, and as we're doing it online, it works fine online too, because the field is here, present with us tonight on Zoom. And I'll just ask you to become aware of, to step into a representation of what it is, and then just to notice what you notice in your body. So we pay a lot of attention, and we're very, it's the most important thing, our body sensations. They're the truest antenna to what's happening. Because you also will start to have different feelings and different thoughts, but we really mostly want to focus on the sensations, because we don't want to go up into our heads and just start having a dialogue about this, and to bring our filter of what we think might be going on. So as a representative, we'll take a couple minutes when you're in that process to let yourself settle in, to see what it feels like to represent that person, or whatever aspect of the person's constellation that's going on. And I'll check in and have you report what you're tracking going on in your body. And what we find is that then spontaneously this information starts arising in the field, and it's independent of, you know, that there's something called blind constellation, where people go out of the room that are going to be representatives, and they don't hear anything about what the person's issue is, and then they come back and they're able to represent. So it's very mysterious, that it's not an intellectual thing, it's not role playing, it's just through our intention of all being here, and we're all focusing with our healing intent. And people did this for many thousands of years. This is what people used to do. They'd sit around in a circle and around the fire as a community. So us coming together and giving, and even if it's not your issue and you're not being a representative, just by being here and to hold the space is very important. We're all contributing to the energy of what unfolds. And so just that witnessing, being one of the witnessing members of the community is very important. And what we find also is people get great insight. It's been proven by research that everybody has a mother or father. And that's a joke. Oh, and I had another COVID joke. I'll ask people to put on a mask so we don't get any computer viruses tonight. And But you know, people get insights from seeing another person's constellation because we all are humans and have the similar, when we get to core issues, particularly family issues and stuff. And just with synchronicity, the insights that people are getting and what unfolds is often very powerful and meaningful for not just the person that's going through exploring their own issue, but that usually resonates for other people in the group who are here tonight. So let me pause for a moment and open up to thoughts and questions and see if it's, yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I wanted to know if in certain cases you also will do the astrological chart of a person or a couple or two people or more to give you a more in-depth understanding of who they are and combine that with the family constellation work?
Yeah. Thanks. That's a good question, and thanks for asking it. And no, I don't do that. This work is completely separate from astrology. Most people that practice family constellation work aren't astrologers. It's just kind of a coincidence that I happen to be an astrologer. And astrology itself is looking at where the planets were at that particular time. And each of those have a certain archetypal signature of where they fall in the zodiac and which astrological sign and which planet, and then their aspects. So it's a whole thing that actually is intellectually determined. And whereas this work is fully, so I wouldn't want to do that. And there's many different styles of family constellation. I really encourage people to go and see different people because it's a very intuitive process and everybody does it in a different way. But the style that I do is called Emergent family constellation. So for some people, they'll do a long interview to see the person's family history and background and where the ancestors and immigrants came from. And, you know, that process can take a long time for some people gathering all that information. And actually, for me, kind of the less I know about the story, the better. I'm not interested in the person's story very much. Often we fool ourselves with our story. Our story might kind of be what's reinforcing our stuck pattern. It might be how we justify things to ourselves, or, you know, we all selectively remember things. So what I'm really interested in is what's going to emerge in the field at the time and paying attention to that. So excellent question. Any other thoughts or questions out there? Okay, so then if we were doing this in person, the person would stand up, and the person who's doing their constellation would put their hands on the back of their shoulders and, you know, standing behind them, sort of move them around in the space and set it up like that. And then that person just sits down and watch what unfolds. They're not involved after that. But in as we're working tonight, they'll just choose you and designate you to be a representative if you choose to do that. And nobody it needs to do that if they don't feel called to that. And then we'll just take a couple minutes for you to settle in to that and to begin to notice what you're noticing in your body. Carol, go ahead.
I know I'm interested in hoping to get to try it tonight, and I don't know how many other people may be as well. Will a number of us have that opportunity?
We shall see. It's again determined by the field, and often we only get a chance to do one or two. But as you'll see, that things happen for a reason. So often people are moved to tears that don't have their own one done. and the insights you get from whoever actually ends up going usually resonate to everyone in the group. So often somebody will come and with a really strong desire that I want it to work, and then we do several of them, and then they'll say, well, I don't want to do it now. I got my answers. I got so much insight that I don't feel like I need to do it anymore. So yeah, but I just like trigger warning, not everybody's who is gonna possibly want to receive one tonight will be able to, because we do have limited time. And often I do these as all-day workshops. The workshop might start at 9 or 10 in the morning and go till 5 at night and stuff. So in that setting, we have a lot more opportunity for more people to do the process. But this is more of an intro type of night tonight.
Okay. And Brandy, is this a good time to stop the recording, do you think?
No, you can keep it going, because I'm actually going to do a meditation, and we can even record the meditation. Just,
Okay. Great.
I mean, because it's fine to share the intro part, and it's fine to share the meditation part. So yeah. And I don't know if Karen meant to type that in the chat, but I think she might be channeling. Oh, that was the cat. I bet that the cat typed that. There we go. I speak Cantonese. It's a form of Chinese.
That was Kitten on the Keys, if you know that.
I speak Dogonese. So there you go. Other questions or thoughts? Okay. So yeah, thinking about an issue that if you did want to work, sometimes people will say, my life is messed up because I have this brother who's a real knucklehead, and he's always making my life terrible. And that's my issue. So we can't change another person. We're not here to change another person. And, you know, actually we can only heal ourselves, and, you know, hopefully we have the wisdom to realize that that's what life presents us to do. So trying to fix and change other people is a losing proposition. Plus we find, you know, that other person is not here. They need to do their piece of their work. So just to let you know, it's important if you're thinking of, you know, if you had a chance to do family constellation, what would the issue be? It can't be about someone else. It's about what's your piece of it. And what we find is when we do our piece of the work, it has a huge impact in the whole system and the whole family or the whole whatever. We're all embedded. And again, this doesn't have to be about family. Our work situation, our friends, our every different aspect of our life is a web of connections that are interrelated and intertied. Yeah, it's that's part of the miracle of this work, that when we shift, the whole system shifts. And yeah, it's so there's so many stories, people who haven't spoken to some parent or uncle or whatever they had conflict with, and they do this work, and like in the next week they get a phone call out of the blue. It's like stuff shifts in the field, and then there's huge changes that happen. But we want to get out of our head, and I encourage people not to overanalyze the process. If you do a piece of work, just hold it kind of like a dream. It's like homeopathy for the soul. It's creating ripples in your energy field to help you move forward in a new, good way. And part of this work can kind of come at looking at life as a series of curses and blessings, and we're trying to release the curses and to open ourselves to the blessings in our life. And we're trying to get movement in the field. Often the field is kind of stuck, and so we're trying to find ways to help things open up And often we might have an ideal that, oh, you know, I've been estranged from my, let's say, a parent, and you might set them up, and at first they're looking away from each other and not acknowledging each other, and there's movement. What happens as a facilitator, I'll be checking in with people, and at a certain phase, I'll have some clarification of what's going on between the different aspects in the constellation. And often if you just kind of say what's going on in a very truthful and very direct kind of way, it clears up things in the field, and that helps clarity, helps the confusion to kind of disappear, and for people to start to reorganize. And yeah, there's deep honoring, and someone wrote in the chat about their son's having issues, and so again that relates to how I want to have you think about, if you were going to do a constellation, then you wouldn't do it on your son's relationship issues, because he'll need to do that piece of work himself. We're here to do our piece of work and our part of our healing, and then we'll see. And really for parents, there's not a lot you can do to change your grown children in a lot of ways, except to become the best example of how you would like their life to be, healthy and happy. And so the more that you can live that fulfilled, rich, full life, then they'll have that as an example. And that's a really, rather than trying to focus on how they're bad or wrong or different things like that. So any other thoughts or questions? Otherwise, we'll go into a brief ancestral meditation. And so yeah, I'll just encourage everybody at this time to get comfortable. And in this process, we're going to be visualizing grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, and going back many generations. So after your great-grandparents or whatever, 1 or 2 generations, we're going to have no idea what they look like. So please don't let that be an obstacle. Sometimes people will say, well, I didn't know what to place there because I didn't know what they look like. So you must have had a great-great-great-great grandfather and grandmother. So just have somebody standing there that represents them. You've never seen their picture, you've never seen anything like that, but don't let that stop you from adding them to this visualization. So now's a good time to get comfortable. We're gonna go within. So go ahead and just take a few big exhales. Let's release and let go with our breath. Let's exhale with a yawn or a sigh. You can just kind of real let go, kind of just exhale all that stale air. Make space for some fresh new air to stream deep into your lungs. See what's going on with your jaw and your shoulders, and just shake off any tension you might have in your body. And you might want to rock a little bit side to side and find your center, become centered. And let yourself become grounded in your sit bones, and become aware of your place standing between the earth and the cosmos above us. So Let yourself breathe from your diaphragm, taking water, air in as if it were water. So like you're pouring water from one pitcher to another. Let the air stream into your lungs, filling up the base of your lungs first, filling up your bottom part of your lungs. So let yourself belly breathe. As we take these diaphragmatic breaths, let yourself also, as you're taking in deep, slow, relaxed breaths, let them not just fill in from the bottom of your lungs, but slowly fill up your whole lungs, because we usually breathe very shallowly. So let not just the bottom, but the upper part of your lungs fill up too. So you're taking full, deep breaths. And go ahead, and I'd like you to sense that your father is standing behind your right shoulder. He has an arm stretched out supporting you and your back, and your mother's behind your left shoulder. So both of them are there. They have an arm reaching out, supporting your shoulder, just giving you support, that they're the ones, because they came together, they were able to pass on life. And that's how you got to have your life. So even if they weren't able to give you anything else in life, you can be grateful for this chance to have your life and to experience this world in your life. So we can just have a little bit of gratitude for that gift of life. And then go ahead and see your grandparents behind your parents. They gave birth to your parents, and then your parents were able to give birth to you. And add your great-grandparents behind your grandparents. Then your great-great-grandparents behind them. And your great-great-great-grandparents. And they were all survivors. They were all able to pass on life. And just at your own pace, keep adding past generations. Welcoming these rings of the circle of the tree, of your family tree, that radiate out dozens and hundreds and thousands of times. These are your literal roots. And connect with your ancient ancestors, the strength and nobility of your ancestors that go way back, the cultures they were involved in. And let yourself lean into this, that you can really feel them at your back. They have your back. You can draw on them for wisdom, for support, for healing, for guidance, strength, whatever it is that you need. So when you send them unconditional love and attention, they're also sending that to you. And you can just sense there's this river of love and life force that flows, that got passed down. Let yourself drink from this resource. Let yourself be nurtured by your connection to these ancestral energies. Let yourself fill up this filling station. And they're very happy to see life going forward. They're very proud and happy to see you possessing this gift of life. They're here to support you. So breathe that in, take a deep breath and anchor it into your cells. Know that you can come back here anytime that you want to hook up to this resource. And then gently at your own pace, you might want to wiggle your fingers and toes. When you feel ready, we can slowly return to the group. And I'm going to end the recording now.